your favorite YouTube channel is probably owned by private equity.
If you spend long enough on YouTube, there's now a very good chance that a substantial share of your watch time is going to channels partially or fully owned by private equity. Major firms operating in this space have raised billions of dollars collectively from companies like SoftBank, Amazon, Disney, Goldman Sachs, and Blackstone.
I'm going to butt in here as a creator and say I think that number's slightly skewed. Creators get reached out by private equity groups a lot, but the idea that the average YouTuber you watch is selling a portion of their channel to private equity is fairly inaccurate. Private equity groups will reach out to YouTubers and offer them lump sums of money for percentages of their revenue for periods of time. Some YouTubers take it, some don't. A lot never even get offers. Mr. Beast is one of those guys because Mr. Beast is one of the biggest YouTubers. He needs a lot of money for videos. So it's not absurd for a private equity group to go to Mr. Beast and go, hey, we'll give you $50 million up front for 20% of your channel's revenue for a year or 2 years.
Have raised billions of dollars collectively from companies like SoftBank, Amazon, Disney, Goldman Sachs, and Blackstone, and they are using that money to acquire YouTube channels as strategic investments. According to my own analytics, where YouTube lets me see what my audience watches, some of these names should be familiar to you. Task and Purpose, Veritasium, Donut Media, Simple History, Fern, Fireship, Economics
Fern is owned by private equity. Okay, but it's not the whole channel. Like, most private equity groups are going to reach out to a creator for at most 50%. They'll do a half and half split for like a 1 to 3 year term. And they'll own a percentage of your channel.
Explained, Mentor, Pilot, Futurism, Astrum, The Drive, and History Hit have all publicly been acquired by private equity. Outside of the nerd corner of YouTube, some of the biggest names in the space, including CoComelon, Colin and Samir, The Theorist, and Dude Perfect, have all...
That doesn't really surprise me. The Theorists probably sold their channel, like sold, 30% of their channel to private equity for like $100 million. Like, they have like 10 channels. That shit is Food Theorists, Makeup Theorists, fucking Game Theory. All those channels looped together probably sell for so much money. Dude Perfect as well.
Also, all partially or completely been acquired.
Dude Perfect, yeah. They don't have say, bro. I feel like the way not the way he's describing it, the way a lot of people perceive it is like, if a private equity group goes to a YouTuber like Dude Perfect and buys 30% of their channel, they have a say in their content. They don't have a say in anything. They don't do anything. They just own part of your channel and realistically float a lot of that money to make, interest on it.
Also only the acquisitions that we know about because they chose to be upfront with their audience. There's no law requiring these...
Yeah, they do. It's not just YouTube shit. Private equity is something that's existed far before YouTube.
...deals to be publicly disclosed, and as you'll soon see, there are some really good reasons why they might want to keep it quiet. So why is this a problem? It's easy to say that private equity is just inherently bad, and to be fair, it's had some problems. But that shouldn't be enough by itself. Instead, what you should know is why private equity firms have suddenly become so interested in YouTube channels.
Because YouTube's the new media. YouTube is the new way to make money in the social space. YouTube, it's usually slept on by how, like, the average user doesn't think about it, and they perceive YouTube separate from, like, Netflix, Hulu, HBO, and all those other places. No. YouTube deadass pulls business from Disney. YouTube pulls business from Netflix. YouTube pulls business from HBO. YouTube is such a big platform with so many creators that people will, on average, spend more time on YouTube than other fucking platforms combined. So people see that and go, this is the next thing. So they want to get in on it.
And what this will likely mean for the future of the content that you watch. Big YouTube channels are really just businesses in the entertainment industry. Even completely independent creators still need to cover their own living expenses, and creating content does cost money. Film equipment, software, location shoots, perhaps a hired video editor, it all adds up.
But those are usually, I think it needs to be noted, the average person taking, like all YouTubers at some point could potentially get a private equity offer, but the average channel that's taking private equity deals are channels that have 10 editors, film cameras, and other shit. Ad incoming? I don't think an ad's incoming. I think this is literally just roping into private equity. Because if you're a channel that needs a lot of money to function, you're basically taking like a low-risk loan from private equity. Because they're giving you money up front. You're not required to pay them back, but you're roped into a deal where they own a percentage of your channel. You're getting money, and if it fails, it fails.
Scrape by, paying themselves fairly modestly. And in the interest of transparency, even this channel, which now has over 70,000 subscribers, has lost money most months since I started it. Anyway, all of this can be fixed with scale. As creative brands grow, their revenue increases while their costs stay relatively stable. At a certain size, most of these channels can generate strong cash flows and predictable profits, which should make them desirable investable assets like any other business, right? Well, not exactly. These operations are incredibly risky, even by small to medium business standards. Most of them depend on a single platform for the majority of their revenue, and these platforms can ban, restrict, or moderate their content overnight, often.
That is the appeal of it for creators, is that it's a safe bet. When private equity comes to you, they're gonna make money on you. They're running statistics on your content. They're betting you're going to make more than they give you, and they're going to get a better return on their interest. They're going to get a better ROI than they would playing the market. And they're probably going to float your money when they get it, which basically means before they pay you out, they invest it themselves, kind of like banks do. Banks float your money. That's how banks make money, if you didn't know that. What is ROI? Return on interest. Banks float your money. When you get paid, like, before you move money, if you just leave money in a bank, they're floating your shit. They fucking take your money and invest it. If you have 100 grand in a bank account, they don't have that money right now. That money's in the markets. They have a percentage of that money legally because of previous problems with banks where they've collapsed because they don't have your money when you ask for it. But they use your money and invest your money to make money on your money, because why the fuck would they take your money for free and keep it safe for free? They're using it, and that's how they make a profit. But private equity might do that. Depends on the company. Anyways, the reason it makes sense for a creator is because you're betting like a portion of your channel in case you fall off, right? In case your videos underperform, in case you get demonetized, age restricted, struck, removed, right? Whatever it is. Like, private equity gives those creators a safety net of pay if anything goes wrong.
With little to no
but then they could lose money in the long term.
Explanation. SunnyV2 and about a dozen copycat channels have built their entire career on saying that the algorithm stopped recommending their content, because it genuinely happens so often. On top of that, most of these businesses depend on a single personality to host the content, even if...
I believe that... Hold up. So he was talking about how, like, creators will talk about how YouTube starts recommending their content. It's because your content sucks. You have time. You have time. I'm not acting like I make prime content, but Kwebbelkop's channel falling off was not a shock, okay? Kwebbelkop's channel doing worse, and then him pivoting to AI and it taking a shit could have been fucking, you don't need to be a genie to know that was gonna fucking happen, okay? Like, you have time. If your videos do bad, like, you don't fall off in a day. Your videos will do bad, and then they do worse, and then they do worse, and then they do worse, and then they do worse. And you have time to go, fuck, I need to change something. And if you don't, and they keep doing worse, you fall off. Everybody has bad months. YouTube's like this. Twitch more like that because it's dependent on if people are busy, what time of year it is. So your views might just be down, not even because you're not entertaining, but because people can't watch you live. YouTube, people can watch whenever. So your views are going to go up and down. But if you have 3 bad months in a row, 5 bad months in a row, that's on you, right? 1, bad month in a row, circumstantial. 2, 3, I need to change something. 4, I'm being lazy. 5, I've fallen off, right? Like that's, and then you're just not changing your content.
Even if there's a larger team working behind the scenes. Human beings, especially those that share their lives online, can get burnt out, get embroiled in controversies, or just fall out of favor with an audience that outgrows them. Typically, the wealthy investors and lenders that give money to private equity firms
I think that's
for them
really, really true of like kid gaming channels, Minecraft YouTubers specifically. The majority of like Minecraft YouTubers fell off not because they weren't entertaining, but because their audience literally grew up and they didn't with them. That's what you want. You want to be Markiplier. Markiplier is like the Mount Rushmore of creators. He made content, his audience grew up with him, and he grew up with his audience, and fucking like aged and roped in new viewers at the same time. That's what you want to do. Or you can just keep making content, you lose those people, and then bring in new ones. It's what avenue you want to go down. I've tried to age slightly. My content is less immature than it was. I'm not saying I don't make brain rot jokes. I'm not saying I don't have a young audience. But if you watch my older videos, they were worse. They were more kiddish. I was a teenager, right? I think I've aged slightly and my audience has aged slightly with me. But then there's creators that stay in the same niche and then they lose audience members as they gain new ones. You really want, in my opinion, to age with your audience.
Scared away by these business fundamentals, but over the past 5 years, a few things have changed which kicked off the great buy-up. The first major change was that creators demonstrated their ability to scale their own brands to generate profits beyond sponsored segments, audience donations, and integrated platforms. Some of these brands have been very successful, others not so much. Even if Beast Burger and
Isn't Prime failing?
Prime Energy completely implode, they were a test case that showed that real
Yeah, but Prime was only doing so well because of the marketing as well. Prime did really well on marketing, but I'm pretty sure their sales have just been plummeting since they've been reducing their marketing.
brands can be launched.
Is Mr. Beast Burger still open? I don't know. I don't know how Lunchly does either. I never know the sales numbers on that shit. I would assume Prime makes a decent bit of money still, but I don't know if they're like a profitable company.
Through clowns on the internet. If that initial success could be paired with a private equity team that actually knew how to run a business, theoretically, then there would be some real money to be made. Another big push that's come from the fact that legacy media, which is large, centralized, rigid, and needs to be broadly appealing, is losing out to millions of individual creators who are flexible, can make content specifically targeted to particular audiences without worrying about tarnishing the reputation of a gigantic media company. These companies now have to fight for advertiser dollars, which are being split over more mediums than ever. Now, this trend is nothing new. Google has been the largest advertising platform in the world for more than a decade now.
No fucking way. Share of advertising dollars is that digital media has skyrocketed that much.
But another threat these legacy businesses are facing is the competition for talent. A lot of people would rather operate their own YouTube channel over working on something like an old school TV show.
Dude, you even see that with like modern, like even like Animal Planet shit. Forrest Galante has his own YouTube channel. He doesn't fucking do TV shows anymore. Like nature documentary shit has moved to YouTube. Like stuff you would always assume will always be cable is no longer cable. Like they're just like, hey, I'm going to make my own YouTube channel. I'll just do this instead. Like the Outdoor Boys. People watch the Outdoor Boys and Forrest Galante more than they'd watch fucking Discovery Channel.
One of the central focuses of Netflix Q1 memo to their investors was reassurance that they are not having any problems finding advertisers, and they presented a better opportunity to creators to make their show through them rather than...
Well, you know what it is too? Advertisers make more money in return on YouTube channels. If you're watching cable, they throw such a broad net out, right? If you're watching a show, they don't know if you're the demographic they're looking for. They're just throwing it out there. There is such a difference in marketing value for creators and social media platforms comparable to old TV or even streaming services. Yeah, they know your profile. They might know the account and the stuff that you watch, so they're able to market to you better. But like, it's so much easier to market products to you if you're doom scrolling TikTok, liking hyper niche videos about specific topics, travel places, products, things, games. They could fucking take all that info, compile a profile on you as an individual, and then sell you as a group to an ad company that's going to market those ads specifically to you. They're going to sell more, and they're going to sell them for higher value too. Same thing with YouTube channels. If you watch Joe Bartolozzi, if you watch Mr. Beast, you're a specific type of person. Even if you're much different than other people that watch the same person, you fit in a broad marketing category that casts a smaller net, which will have a higher turnover rate for advertisers than something like cable, where you're on Wheel of Fortune and they're just throwing out State Farm ads and random shit that's just getting shown to a million people, but only really matters to like 50,000.
And produce it independently. Other legacy companies have started taking a simpler approach. If you can't beat them, buy them. Even if the business case is not that strong, a company like Disney giving a few $1 million to a private equity firm that specializes in acquiring YouTube channels lets their executives say that they are prepared for the threats that new media presents.
I wonder what Disney really has their foot in the door for buying YouTube channels. I wonder how they'd take that though. Like, the way that I've always understood and obviously seen it in my career, private equity always just owns a percentage of your ad revenue and in return makes some interest on it. I wonder if Disney, though, would want some sort of say in the channel. Because Disney, you know, is a very controlling company. And they do what they get done what they want you to do. So I wonder if Disney was ever going to a private equity group, if they would want to buy more than half of a channel so they could just tell you what to do.
Appeasing shareholders is often a lot more important to senior management than making genuinely good business decisions, especially when an investment of a few $1 million is actually quite cheap. Before around 2020, old school media companies were still going about this in their own old school way. They would invest in traditional companies that just happen to have a new media digital first focus. Think of businesses like Vice, BuzzFeed, Mashable, and Vox.
BuzzFeed. Ugh.
These brands would build their own.
What was that one channel? Was it BuzzFeed? What was that one channel that tried to sell their regular YouTube content as a subscription service and wrote it off as a benefit? And it like shot in their face immediately. Was that BuzzFeed? No. I feel like it was those guys that did like food reviews or something. It wasn't BuzzFeed. They maybe made like murder videos. Was it Watcher? I don't know. They were like, hey, instead of doing YouTube content, we're going to make it like $10 a month. But like, trust me, it's going to be like way better videos. I was like, bro, you're just charging now for people to watch your shit.
IP and primarily rely on platforms like Facebook and YouTube to distribute it. But behind the scenes,
which didn't really make sense to me, because even if you had like, say 30% of your, like say I stopped making content on YouTube and I started making YouTube, like my videos on another platform that I charged a fee for, even if you had to pay $10 a month for it, I would make less money than it, because not everybody would do it. Like only 20% of my audience would transfer over. I'd get less views and I'm not marketing my own content. You would just be paying to see it. Like, I don't understand the purpose in trying to even go that avenue.
They were still operated.
Like, at that point, you could just do MCN deals, too. That's another thing that he's not mentioning. I don't know if we'll mention it later on. MCN deals are, like, another big thing in private equity and just, like, ad space groups, is that they'll sell, like, usually roped into these is, like, hey, we're going to sell premium ads on your content. So, like, YouTube as a company goes out to a bunch of brands, or brands go to them and they sell ads in your videos. MCN companies and companies in general can go to other company or go to other brands and be like, hey, we'll do the same thing but better. So they'll sell higher valued ads in your videos that pay, say, a cent instead of half a cent. And so they'll make more money on the back end as well by selling premium ads in your content looped in with the percentage that they owe or own.
Which meant these were terrible businesses. They would burn cash and they were much more expensive to acquire in the first place. Vice Media was once valued at over $5.5 billion. That's an unreasonable valuation for an organization that primarily distributed through a YouTube channel and a Facebook page. These are pages that get similar monthly viewership to Atriox's Daily Clips channel. Now,
yo, actually though, oh my God. I watch Atriox Clips. Bro, Atriox's Clip channel gets as many views as me a lot of the time, but he has like, dude, he gets more views than subs.
Now, clearly these are not the same thing, but one is obviously much cheaper to operate.
Oh, one's cheaper to operate and honestly more reliable. If you were an investor, it makes more sense to pay Atriox for a percentage of his channel than BuzzFeed, because BuzzFeed needs a lot of money to operate. Their videos take a long time to make. Atriox can pump out 3 videos a day at his desk. So if you're an investor and you're like, I have $1 million, who should I give this to? You might actually start going to Twitch streamers like Atriox instead of BuzzFeed or Vice.
Than the other, on top of being generally more advertiser friendly. The channel Modern NBA did a deep dive into these companies and their respective failures. He did a better job than I could ever do, so instead of retreading the same details, I'll just leave a link to that video if you're
I think BuzzFeed and Vice failed because they lost the plot. They got too big. They had so many employees, so many new niche millennial ideas, and it just became unbearable. It used to be like cool, and I think they got into the space early, and then everybody started doing their job better than them.
Interested in that comedy of errors. But the point is, the legacy media companies that wanted to protect themselves against a wave of social media by throwing money at it needed a new solution. Instead of investing in companies to build an online audience, they could just invest in private equity firms that would buy out people who already had an audience. And then there's the private equity industry itself. Over the past 20 years, the scale of private equity operations has increased from less than a measly $1 trillion to over $12 trillion today in America.
Private equity is that met what? The gradual growth of private markets gained momentum during the pandemic. Private equity, private debt, and real assets. Dude, private equity has that much ownership.
Alone, according to Preqin, a data firm who are themselves owned by BlackRock. With this much money to manage, they've simply run out of normal businesses to acquire. New private equity managers who want to start their own funds are entering a very saturated market, and one of the best ways to differentiate themselves is to invest in businesses that nobody else understands.
Yeah, because private equity is in every business market you could find. Like, you could get into private equity and start, having ownership in a random city in fucking, Idaho. But you could also go, I know a lot about YouTubers. There's not many other private equity groups dealing with YouTubers. So this is a very lucrative market right now. I think 10 years down the line, private equity in YouTuber ownership is going to be so normalized that there's just tens of companies that do it.
Through public releases, the biggest firms in the YouTube space have collectively raised about $2 billion and borrowed an additional $2 billion on top of that. So it's still quite a small part of the overall private equity market, but that's still more than enough money for it to become an increasingly large part of your home screen. Now, for the creators themselves, this is a perfectly understandable decision to make. Online fame can literally collapse at any second for any reason.
Bro, but private equity can also go to channels that don't even post anymore. Because you got to think, like, bro, name a channel that's like a back roll of videos from 15 years ago, but they still get views. Like, obviously, it's not something that's as lucrative as somebody that's still actively posting, but YouTube channels make money long after they're gone. Like, they could go to Corey Kenshin, who doesn't really post much now, and go, hey, Corey, we're going to give you $10 million for a percentage of your channel. And he could just go, yeah, sure. Vsauce still gets probably $1 million+ per year just off of the sheer size of his channel.
So if they can sell part or all of their channel and secure that bag, I don't think anybody should begrudge them for doing it. But it will inevitably change their content slowly but surely over time. One of the things that made YouTube channels a viable investment in the first place was their low overheads. A team of 2 or 3 people with off-the-shelf equipment can produce content that would have taken a whole studio at legacy media companies. But when a channel is acquired by a private equity company...
I think that's also why a lot of people want to become Twitch streamers more than YouTubers, because I think a lot of people perceive YouTubers as needing a lot more equipment, editors, and shit like that, whereas Twitch streaming is like growth off of just sitting in your room. Like, I mean, not always. You know, you have IRL streamers and shit, but the majority of streamers start out by literally just like playing video games and talking.
They become the overhead. The analysts, business development managers, strategists, and acquisition teams all need to be paid as well. This means that to maintain profitability,
YouTuber is for some reason known as a harder job. I think gaining success on YouTube is harder than Twitch. I'll say that. I think you could become a mildly successful Twitch streamer if you're clip farming and posting, meaning like I think you could have like 100 viewers on Twitch, but like the equivalent in pay would be like 50k subs on YouTube with like 10k views a video. Like you're probably not getting that. Like if you're a 100 viewer Twitch streamer, you could probably make an annual salary, but like on YouTube it's a lot harder to get that. I hard disagree. I mean, you're allowed to hard disagree. I think it depends on what channel you're going for. But I've seen a lot more, let's just put it this way. Most YouTubers that are successful could be successful streaming. There are a lot of Twitch streamers that have dead YouTube channels. There's less Twitch streamers than there are YouTubers, but I think that's because Twitch doesn't make as much money. I think if the money was here, there would be people here. I'm not saying the money's not here, but I'm saying YouTube makes way more money than Twitch. It's not even close. Like if you're a top 10 YouTuber, you make way more than any of the top 10 Twitch streamers. Not necessarily on sponsorship rev, but just off of raw income. Like you're huge. So it's like YouTube's, because it's more lucrative, I think more people try to do it. And I think you could have like maybe easier small level success, but I'm saying like money. Like making money on YouTube, I think is harder than making money on Twitch. There are people that can average 50 viewers on Twitch and do this as a part or full-time job, comparable to people that do YouTube. It is a lot harder and more money and time intensive to get into YouTube.
the channel needs to make more revenue, which means more videos, more questionable sponsorships, more products.
Like let me put it this way. I post every fucking day on Main and Gaming, or almost every day, like 5 to 7 days a week. I pay my editors. I don't pay anybody to stream. I can stream myself. You could stream yourself. You could edit your videos yourself, but you're not going to be cranking out 2 videos a day editing yourself and streaming. Like that would take hours to do. So you need to offload a lot of work. YouTube, you usually have more money involved.
The investors in these firms also want to see consistent and continuous growth, which means they need to play the YouTube game with low-risk videos that are guaranteed to do well with the algorithm.
How much money would you accept to take a percentage of your channel? It would depend. Are they taking 20%, 40%, 50%? Are they doing it on backroll for older videos? Are they doing it for modern content, all of my channel? For how long? For my main, my gaming, my philosophy, and my VOD, or just 1 or 2 or 3, right? Like, then you get into the real statistics on, like, it's not as simple as them coming to you and just going, hey, we're gonna pay you this for 10% of this. They're going to do a deep dive on your analytics. They're going to estimate your growth. They're going to estimate how much money you're going to make in the longevity of your channel and risk factors. And then they're going to go to you with an offer that is fairly reasonable for you to maybe be roped in, but definitely reasonable enough for them to recuperate their money before the term's over.
By hyper-optimized thumbnails. Ultimately, what this means for
What about Patreon? I don't do Patreon.
you is that the content you watch is going to become more generic and safe within the parameters of what will optimize retention. This also works with a private equity business strategy called rolling up, where multiple acquired channels will share management resources with one another. So if one thing works well for one channel, it'll be rolled out amongst all the channels in a portfolio. Now, independent YouTubers are—
And then they could sell you at bulk in MCN deals. They acquire, let's just do an example. They acquire 20%, 10% of my channel, Jinxie's channel, Queso, and Kai. They can now loop that together and go to firms, or not firms, companies, and go, we'll put premium ads in these people's channels. That's what management groups do, right? Like, I'm managed by a company that ropes me and 10 other streamers to a video game, and they go, we'll do an ad with you. We have 10 guys ready to do it today. And then you get more money, because then you have those companies. Night Media manages me. Night Media manages like a lot of streamers, you know. So when I do a gaming ad, it's not shocking that there's 5-10 other streamers doing the same fucking ad, because they went to the company and said, hey, we have 10 people that are ready to do it on this day. And then it's easier for the company to do that because they only have to go through one middleman versus individually going to 10 different managers or creators. Because then the management will figure it out. They'll do the negotiation and the money rather than 10 different negotiations, 10 different YouTubers, 10 different blanks.
Are absolutely guilty of this as well. I've personally—
Like when I did the Marvel Rivals ad, most of those people weren't managed by the company I'm managed by. But a lot of them were managed by similar people. Like, if I had to guess, genuinely, that Marvel Rivals ad I did, there were 6 teams of 6 people. So there were 36 streamers. Of those 36 streamers, I would say 20 of them were probably managed by 4 different companies. And then the rest were random, right? So those people, it was easy for them to go, hey, we'll give you this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy to do this ad for Rivals.
I spent many late nights making minor adjustments to my thumbnails to help my videos do just a little bit better. But without a bloated team that needs to be paid and investors that need to be kept happy, independent creators do have a little bit more leeway to take some creative risks from time to time. Rolling up and hyper-optimization is only going to accelerate a trend of every single piece of content on YouTube moving towards the same generic but effective formula. This is amplified by another problem that comes when the channel turns into an asset, which is that they typically want to move away from the focus on a single creator. For more than a decade, a channel like Veritasium has been focused on the host, Dr. Derek Muller. For a lot of regular viewers, Dr. Muller
never knew his name. I look at him and I go, that's Veritasium. I go, that's that guy's name. That's Veritasium. Dr. Muller? That's this dude's name?
Hosts are slowly being introduced, so the whole operation isn't as singularly focused on one personality. The business case is that it cuts down on something called key man risk, which is where the entire operation depends on one single person to continue. Since Veritasium isn't actually Derek's business anymore, there's nothing to stop him restarting a new channel from scratch.
Wait, what?
Or just retiring, since presumably he made millions of dollars from the acquisition in the first place. For other channels, this has already happened. If you search "why I left blank" in the YouTube search bar, there are endless videos from former personalities behind big channels talking about why they're suddenly showing up on a completely new channel. A common theme among most of them is that it wasn't their channel anymore. Most of these splits seem pretty amicable, often with the old channel commenting words of support under the video itself, but obviously this is still a real problem behind the scenes. After losing their host,
well, they lose more and more percentage of their channel, and then they lose creative input, and that's why they want to get the fuck out of there, is because they don't control the channel anymore.
A lot of these channels have suffered from reduced viewership, and people are far less likely to directly support channels through merch or paid memberships when they know it's really just a faceless investment firm on the other side of the transaction.
That's true.
As this industry matures, we're more likely to see more onerous, non-compete contracts from acquired channels and a continuation of a trend towards commercially viable, predictable, and safe content over the unique and creative content that made YouTube.
I think he's wrong. I don't think he's showing private equity. Yeah, wants to acquire more YouTube channels, but I don't think they're doing it in a way of trying to control the content they create, rather just make money on YouTubers using like lump-based ownership to sell to advertisers and make interest on the money they give them.
So compelling in the first place. Now go and watch this video next to understand the...
All right, well, that was a fun video.